She sent you here to kill me?
Or you can leave.
I'm not leaving.
Your choice.
Being from the world of John Wick is not an easy thing. In the fictional universe, there's both an ancient and shadowy assassins guild and a remarkably high body count to worry about. But out here in the real world, any newcomer to Wick's turf has an instantly iconic Keanu Reeves character to live up to, as well as our expectation for innovative, jaw-dropping stunts. These are big shoes to fill, and not everyone can do it. Just ask the Continental. Ana de Armas, as deadly, revenge-minded orphan Eve Macaro, just wants a chance to try, though. And as unfortunate as it is for everybody living under the high table, I'm happy to say she goes toe-to-toe with the Baba Yaga. De Armas is a star through and through. We've known that since Knives Out, we've seen her action chops a few times since, and throughout this movie, she's equal parts angry and frustrated, dangerous and vulnerable, and she proves that Ballerina really does belong in the world of John Wick. Movie spin-offs are tough in the best of circumstances. Before you've even started, you're already languishing in the shadow of a previous success, a triumph so big and undeniable that somebody decided it'd be worth it to make a different movie that's only kind of related to that triumph. The challenge, I think, is twofold. Number one, you have to nail all the hallmarks of the original movie and or the rest of that franchise. Number two, you have to be your own movie as well. That's a balancing act bordering on impossible and mutually exclusive. And, fair or not, that's what was on my mind going into Ballerina. And I admit, I didn't have terribly high hopes for it.
Welcome to the Continental. Checking in.
The first third, maybe even the whole first half of the movie, kind of validated those apprehensions. It's interesting sitting down to another helping of the world of John Wick, only to watch somebody have to get better at assassinating. And part of the charm of the John Wick franchise is being plunked down in the middle of this fully formed world full of legendary hitmen and rules that everybody knows, and that's not exactly the case with Ballerina. It's something that honestly takes a second to get used to. And this section of Ballerina is okay, even good in spots, but the action is pretty standard beat-em-up fare. Eve's backstory is suitably tragic, but it's all pretty rote. It's that backstory, so basic it's in the IMDb synopsis, that weighs these scenes down. We know Eve wants to avenge her fallen father, and when the time came, I find myself more just kind of waiting on him to die rather than actually feeling his death, you know? If this is the whole motivation for her roaring rampage of revenge, why doesn't it carry a little more weight? Instead, it all feels like a shorthand. Like director Lynn Wiseman and screenwriter Shay Hatton, along with a veritable murderer's row of uncredited contributors, including franchise boss Chad Stahelski, it's like they know we know a father being murdered is enough backstory for an assassin, so they didn't invest as much emotion into it. And that's fair, to a point. I mean, we all get how movies work, and this is a franchise built off a guy's dog getting killed. So the trick with shorthand, though, particularly in the fifth installment of a franchise, is that it needs to be, short. Either Ballerina needed a more charismatic turn out of the father and more oomph behind the connection that Eve feels with him, or it all needed to kind of just get out of the way quicker. But here's the other thing about the first half of this movie. It is not the part that anybody will remember or talk about. There's a point at which Ballerina earns its place in the world of John Wick, and from that moment on, it is an absolute blast. And I use the word blast here quite literally because the moment I'm referring to involved what I will forever very affectionately refer to as great grenade stuff. Which brings me back to my two requirement theory of spin-offs. The first being that you need to correctly do what the franchise does best. John Wick movies have always had a creative approach to action and fight choreography. When they're at their peak, the fight scenes make you cringe and chuckle at the same time. It's an entire series built by stunt people for stunt people who are all saying, here's a thing we do better than anybody, and here's us having a blast doing it. That's the energy Ballerina finds about halfway through. All of a sudden, Eve is using her environment and improvising weapons, taking as many hits as she's dishing out. All of the hallmarks of this franchise, the bits of it that spring to mind first when you think about John Wick, are present and accounted for at the level we expect from the series. Now, I've read about the reshoots, or additional photography, or whatever they want to call it. The credited director, Lynn Wiseman, directed some, Chad Stahelski directed some, and if you want to look for where their fingerprints are in the film, you can see them. The thing to keep in mind is, that really doesn't matter. How the sequences ended up on screen is a distant second place to what ended up on screen. The climactic sequences in a frozen village on the edge of a Swiss lake rip whoever directed them. But while we're still on that first requirement for spin-offs, I may as well mention that yes, Keanu Reeves is here again. John Wick finds himself in a little action, not much by his usual standards, but the highlight for me is a little bit meta. John and Eve square off in a way that John obviously doesn't like. He doesn't want to fight against Eve's story or keep her from what she's trying to do. I don't think that scene was written in there by accident either, and it's not an insignificant scene for the Baba Yaga himself to show up in. Now, I do find myself pretty confused as to when exactly this scene takes place. There's an easy-to-place sequence earlier in the movie and some clues about that fight scene, but thinking about John Wick Chapters 3 into Chapter 4, I really don't know when he had time to get on a train and pay a visit to the Ballerina.
Perhaps I can send someone to solve the problem.
Again, though, I really don't care, because that's not what the world of John Wick should be about. I was having way too much fun with the important parts of the franchise that Ballerina was knocking out of the park to worry too much about the chronology they're working with. So, the spin-off scorecard shows Ballerina did Part 1 almost totally right. How does it fare on Part 2? How well does this movie stand on its own? The short answer is pretty well. The longer answer has more to do with that grenade stuff that I'm super into now, by the way. This is a funny movie. The filmmakers clearly understand what the audience has come to expect from the Wickverse and use some of those expectations to create a handful of really funny and subversive moments. If it's not grenades, it's dinner plates or a freezer door or dueling flamethrowers. Even duct tape gets some significant comedic mileage. There's one scene in particular, all about the aftermath of an assignment, that's maybe the most smartly crafted joke in the entire franchise. And it helps tremendously that the weight of John's 4-film odyssey has been completely shed here. This movie has no real concerns about paying off any setup or sticking a satisfying landing that's been years in the making. It seems like the filmmakers themselves felt that too, because despite the characteristically tight stunt choreography, there's a lot of loose fun happening on screen. And that lighter touch shows up thematically as well. Every previous John Wick movie stacked a new golden coin of mythology on top of the already heaping pile on the high table, and that's true of Ballerina as well. This movie presents a side to the world of John Wick that allows Eve to be a heroic figure from the start. As sympathetic a figure as John Wick himself has always been, there's a murkiness to him, a sense that he's killed countless people over his years serving the table, and maybe he's just reaping a little of what he's sown.
Yeah.
Eve has no such baggage here, and that makes the lighter moments that much lighter. And I'm happy to say Ballerina serves both items on my spin-off movie checklist. It continues the traditions of the Wick franchise, but in a surprising way that stands out. We're introduced to new corners of the world of John Wick, including a new villain played by Gabriel Byrne in full-on scenery-chewing mode. That's a compliment, by the way. But it also offers another side of our hero's coin. There's the unflappable agent of chaos and death, but there's also a choice to be a protector and a safe haven. That's something we haven't seen yet from a John Wick movie, and why, on the balance, Ballerina is such a successful spin-off. That and the grenade stuff. Grenade stuff is great. I hadn't really thought about how grenades were the next frontier of John Wick fighting props, but I'm a grenade guy now. From the world of John Wick, Ballerina is getting an 8. I really had a lot of fun with this movie, and I think it pretty much does all the things it sets out to do, in spite of a slow and a little subpar by Wick standards first half. Once this movie gets cooking, though, it is a sprint to the finish in all the best ways. It's got an energy and momentum that are undeniable during one funny, bloody, and creative fight scene after another. I get a +1 to all these media screenings, and I took a friend of mine, and we were laughing through almost the entire second half of this movie. Go see this with the group in a big room. It's a blast. Grenade puns. Well, that's what I thought of Ballerina. Let me know if you're excited to get back into the world of John Wick in the comments. And for more grenade stuff, be sure to like and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.